You ever feel like your whole family just tolerated you? Like if you vanished, they'd only notice because someone had to take the trash out. That was me, Jordan. Oldest kid. Quiet one. Not the golden child, just the guy who fixed the Wi-Fi and showed up on time. I never caused trouble, never asked for much, didn't even realize how invisible I was until I moved out and nobody noticed I hadn't been home for Christmas in 3 years. But let me rewind. A year ago, I was working remote as a software engineer in Chicago. Pretty chill life. Decent apartment, no debt. I made okay money. Nothing flashy, but I had savings. I'd been grinding since college, freelance gigs on the side, no vacations, just stacking cash for something. I didn't even know what back then. That Thursday night, I was just reheating leftover Thai and queuing up some dumb sci-fi show when my phone rang. It was my mom, which was weird. Mom doesn't call. She texts like "how are you" twice a year and forgets punctuation exists. So when I saw her name pop up with 3 missed calls and a voicemail that just said, "Jordan, please call me," my stomach dropped. I called back. She was crying. Not normal sniffles, like gasping can't breathe full meltdown mode. I thought someone died. That night, I got in my car and drove straight to the house. The one I grew up in, cracked porch, peeling paint, same old couch that smelled like corn chips and wet dog. Inside it felt heavy, quiet, too quiet. Dad was staring at the floor like it had answers. My sister Maddie was pacing like a caged animal. My younger brother Kyle wouldn't look at me. And my baby sister Riley nowhere to be seen. Grandma sat in her usual spot looking smaller somehow. "Sit down," Dad said. That's when I knew it was bad. Turns out, and buckle up, they were in deep. Like $70K in debt, kind of deep. Credit cards maxed, mortgage months behind. Kyle had blown through his business loan. Maddie had a payday loan no one knew about. And the bank, they were days away from foreclosure. And guess what? They wanted me to help. My dumbass response, "I've got you, don't worry." Yep, that's what I said. Like some emotionally deprived Labrador finally getting a head pat. I dipped into my entire emergency fund. $70,000. I didn't even blink. Paid off utilities, the worst credit cards, negotiated with the bank to save the house, even cleared Maddie's sketchy loan so they'd stop calling at midnight. Everyone was grateful for a while. Dad said, "You saved us." Mom cried happy tears. Maddie hugged me. Even Kyle fist bumped me like we weren't mortal enemies. For a hot second, I felt like I mattered, like they saw me. But a month later, texts slowed. Calls stopped. Every visit was awkward. I'd knock and Mom would be like, "Oh, you're here." Kyle ignored me. Maddie went back to rolling her eyes. Riley barely looked up from her phone. "No thank you, no. Hey, how are you?" I became background noise again. It hit me hard the night I brought over groceries and Maddie literally said, "You're just doing this for attention." WTF. I gave them my savings. I gave them peace, and somehow that made me the problem. But I kept quiet. I always do. Until the car. The secret I hadn't told anyone. Long before their financial meltdown, I'd been saving to buy my parents a car. Their sedan, if you could call it that, sounded like a dying lawnmower on a good day. Duct-taped mirrors. Windows that only rolled down if you hit the switch just right. So I worked extra hours, squirreled away cash, watched for deals. And finally I got it. A sleek silver crossover. Nothing wild, but roomy, reliable, fully loaded. I wanted it to be a surprise. A thank you for everything kind of moment. I thought it might fix the weird distance between us. I really believed that. So that night, I parked around the corner, rang the doorbell, and told them, "Let's have dinner. I've got something cool to show you after." Their response, a grunt, a sigh. Maddie muttering, "I have plans later." Kyle yelling from upstairs, "Is this gonna take long?" Mom didn't even look up from her phone. That was it for me. I still tried. I served dinner, smiled, waited for the right moment. But then Kyle had the audacity to say, "Can I borrow your car tomorrow?" Mine's being dumb again. I said I needed it for work. Maddie snapped, "Wow, can pay off our debts but can't lend your precious car, big hero." That's when I snapped. I slammed my fork down and said, "You know what, screw this. I came here to do something nice. I got you people a damn car, and this is how you act." I stormed outside. They followed, confused, until they saw it, parked down the street, shiny, clean, new. Their jaws dropped, and I said, "This was supposed to be yours, but you don't deserve it." Dead silence. And then, Grandma stood up. She shuffled over, purse clutched tight, and said, "I'm going with him." Everyone stared, like she just declared herself Queen of Mars. Mom nearly fainted. Dad went pale. Maddie stammered, "But Grandma." She walked straight to the passenger seat, got in, buckled up. Didn't say a word. I got in beside her. Drove off, didn't look back. "You've always been the only one with a good head on your shoulders." That's what Grandma said to me the night we drove off, her voice calm, like she wasn't walking away from her entire family. Like she hadn't just torched 50 years of obligation in a single sentence. The car ride was quiet at first, real quiet. My hands were still shaking from the dinner table blow-up. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the engine. Grandma just sat there looking out the window like it was any other night, like she wasn't leaving everything behind. I didn't say anything for maybe 5 minutes. I was still processing, still stunned. Then I blurted, "So, you serious back there?" She nodded deadpan, dead serious. I let out a laugh, not a happy one, the bitter kind. "They're gonna freak." "They already did," she said, pulling out a tiny wrapped candy from her purse. "Let them." I pulled into a diner parking lot. I couldn't go home yet. I needed air, needed to figure out what the hell just happened. I asked if she wanted coffee. She said pie. Of course. So we sat in a booth drinking burnt diner coffee, sharing a slice of apple pie like fugitives. Grandma stirred her sugar into the cup slowly. She always did that, like she had all the time in the world. And then she dropped it on me. "There's something you should know," she said, "and you're not gonna like it." Wow. That's comforting, I muttered, not ready for more drama. She leaned in. "Your grandfather left you something when he passed." "A lot, actually." I stared at her. "Money." She nodded. 7 figures. I almost choked. "Excuse me?" She calmly sipped her coffee. "He didn't trust your parents with it. He set up a trust in your name. I've been managing it quietly ever since." I put my fork down. "You're telling me I've had a trust fund and no one told me?" "Not had," she corrected. "Have, and no. They knew. But the instructions were to keep it from you until you were old enough to handle it. And honestly," she gave me a look, "you're finally ready." I sat there stunned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to ask her if this was a test or a joke or some kind of early onset dementia scenario. But I knew her. She didn't play games. She never had. She reached into her purse and handed me a small leather notebook. It was old, worn at the corners, smelled like cedar and peppermint. Inside were handwritten notes, contact names, passwords, investment balances, legal documents. I flipped through it, trying to breathe. "Why me?" I asked, voice cracking just a little. Grandma didn't hesitate. "Because you're the only one who's never taken. You always give, and they treat you like an afterthought. That ends now." I didn't know what to say. My whole life I thought I was just the filler kid, the helper, the "oh yeah, Jordan 2" sibling. And now I'm sitting on enough money to buy back every ounce of dignity they tried to strip from me. We went back to my place that night. She crashed on the pullout. I barely slept. My brain wouldn't stop. Every moment of being ignored, dismissed, made to feel small, it all hit different now. I woke up to 47 unread messages. "Mom, you embarrassed me. You need to come talk to us." "Maddie, wow, real mature Jordan, running away with Grandma Kyle. You're a selfish prick." I didn't respond. I made pancakes for Grandma instead. The next few days were chaos. Phone calls, DMs, even a knock at my door. I ignored all of it. I needed space. I needed to breathe. But then Maddie showed up unannounced. I opened the door. She pushed past me like it was still her house. "We need to talk." "No, we really don't," I said, crossing my arms. She looked around my apartment like she was above it. "Look, I get that you're mad, but you blew up over nothing." "Nothing," I snapped. "You all gaslit me, mocked me. After I cleaned up your mess, you made me feel like trash." Maddie rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, Jordan, you're always so sensitive. It's not that deep." That's when Grandma stepped out of the kitchen. She had a mug of tea in one hand and her death glare fully activated. "Maddie," she said, voice low, "you can leave now." Maddie scoffed. "Seriously, you're siding with him?" "I'm not siding," Grandma said. "I'm choosing. I've chosen him. I've watched this family take and take from him for years. It ends now." Maddie's jaw dropped. "This is insane." "What's insane is you thinking you were entitled to his life savings and still treating him like garbage." Silence. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Maddie left. I locked the door behind her. That night, Grandma handed me another folder, this one labeled Backup Plan. Inside were letters, bank records, and something I didn't expect, a DNA test. My heart sank. What is this? I wanted to wait, but... She paused. "Your mom isn't your biological mother." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She continued. You were adopted when you were 2. They kept it quiet, said it would confuse things, said they'd tell you eventually, but they never did. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, trying not to fall apart. They didn't want you for love, Jordan, Grandma said. They wanted you because your birth mom left you something, and they used it up, then blamed you for existing. I buried my face in my hands. All of it, the distance, the weird tension, the way I was always a little separate. It made sense now. I wasn't one of them. I never had been. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't unwanted. I was misled. And now I wasn't playing their game anymore. I looked up at Grandma. She nodded, like she knew exactly what I was thinking. They don't get to rewrite your story, she said. Not anymore. That was the moment it all shifted. I wasn't the backup kid. I was the storm coming. And I wasn't done. Not even close. The following morning, I woke up with one thing in my head. I'm done being the guy who fixes everything while getting nothing. No more free rides. No more quiet swallowing of guilt trips and manipulation. I made coffee, sat at my desk, opened Grandma's notebook, and started making calls. First, her estate lawyer. We scheduled a meeting. I scanned and emailed over the documents she'd been keeping, the trust fund papers, letters from Grandpa, even a notarized statement from a bank manager confirming she'd been managing the money under his wishes. It wasn't just a hidden savings account. This was structured, legal, intentional. Your grandmother was sharper than most people half her age, the lawyer said. She's been planning this transition to you for over a decade. I hung up stunned. I hadn't earned any of this by their standards. I didn't throw tantrums like Maddie, didn't fake success like Kyle. I didn't even demand anything. I just kept showing up. And that's what made me dangerous now. I was no longer just the invisible son. I was the one holding the strings. That same day, the messages got more desperate. Maddie called 4 times. Mom sent me a chain of texts that basically went, "You're still family, you're being unfair, you're tearing us apart." That last one made me laugh out loud. I waited a few hours and then sent one reply. I didn't tear this family apart. I just finally walked out of the fire you built around me. No response after that, for a minute. Then came the knock on the door. It was Dad. I stood still for a second before answering. This man hadn't spoken to me directly in months, maybe longer. Last time he did it was something like, "Don't forget to mow the lawn." Now he was on my doorstep with a face that said, "This isn't a visit, this is a mission." He looked older than I remembered. Smaller. "Can I come in?" he asked. I thought about it, then I stepped aside. He sat down awkwardly like someone trying to remember how chairs worked. I stayed standing. "So he started this situation has gotten out of hand." I folded my arms. "You left. With Grandma. You embarrassed your mother and now you're freezing everyone out." "You mean after I saved the house and got spat on for it?" Dad winced. "That's not what happened." "Cut the crap, Dad," I snapped. "You all treated me like I was furniture, until I gave you 70 grand. Then I was the hero, for 5 minutes, until I wasn't useful anymore." He didn't respond. "I bought you a car, you mocked me before I could even show you. You all made it crystal clear I'm only good for fixing problems, never for being a son." He looked at the floor. I waited. Nothing. So I asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me I was adopted?" His head snapped up. "What?" "I know. Grandma told me. And I saw the paperwork." He swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that," he said. "Your birth mom, she was a family friend. When she died, we took you in. We were going to tell you, we just..." "Didn't I finish for him? You didn't tell me because it was easier to pretend I was one of you. Until I wasn't." "Jordan, no, I'm done." I pointed at the door. "Whatever you came here for, forget it. The answer's no." Dad stood slowly, like every year of guilt had suddenly attached itself to his spine. He nodded. "Okay," he said softly. "I deserve that." Then he walked out. And that messed me up. I wasn't expecting softness. I was expecting deflection, rage, manipulation. Instead, he left like someone who had finally accepted defeat. But it wasn't over. The next night we got served papers. Grandma's financial assets, the trust, her property, even her medical decisions were being challenged by the rest of the family. They were claiming she was mentally unfit. I nearly screamed. "They're really doing this," I said, pacing around the living room while Grandma calmly folded her laundry like it was just another Tuesday. "Of course they are," she replied. "They think money equals entitlement. Always have. The nerve. After everything they drained from her, everything I cleaned up, now they wanted to rip away what was legally and morally hers. And mine." "You sure you're up for this?" I asked. She gave me that look. That steel-eyed, don't push your luck look. "Sweetheart, I've been handling family lawsuits since before you were born." The next few weeks were brutal. Court filings, statements, family showing up to try and sway her with crocodile tears. But Grandma was unshakable. And so was our case. We had everything: video evidence of her signing forms in full mental clarity, third-party evaluations, even recordings from her financial advisor confirming she had set this up for years. Their case unraveled like a bad sweater. One by one, they dropped out except Maddie. She pushed it to the end. At the final hearing, she showed up in heels that screamed desperation and handed the judge a folder. Inside, a birth certificate. Mine. Unaltered. It listed my birth mom. No mention of my current parents. She looked at me smug. "Just thought the court should see who he really is," she said. Like that was going to destroy me. Like some paperwork could undo everything I had done. But the judge barely blinked. "This doesn't change the trust's validity," she said. "It only shows that Mr. Jordan Carter was adopted. That has no legal bearing here." Maddie turned red. I smiled. For the first time in months, I smiled without bitterness. I'd won. Not just the case. My voice. My name. My place in the world. After the ruling, we walked out into the sunlight. Grandma squeezed my hand. "I told you," she said. "They underestimated you." I nodded, blinking back something that wasn't quite tears. "I underestimated me too," I said quietly. Later that night back home, I logged into the trust account. The money was there, intact, untouched, and for once I didn't feel guilty looking at it. This wasn't blood money, this wasn't a gift. This was mine. Earned not by DNA or forced loyalty, but by doing the right thing when no one else would. And I wasn't wasting it. Not on them, not on revenge, but on peace. And the next morning, I started drafting the foundation paperwork. The Carter Fund for Overlooked Kids. Because if I could help just one kid like me, the backup kid feel seen, then maybe all of this meant something. Maybe it already did. 2 weeks after the court ruling, something weird happened. Silence. No calls, no angry voicemails, no sarcastic texts from Maddie, no guilt-trippy, "We're still your family" messages from Mom, just nothing. It felt like someone had turned the volume down on my entire life. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt like I was standing on a frozen lake just waiting for the crack. I spent those days helping Grandma get settled. She moved in full-time. I cleared out my office so she could have a proper bedroom. Got her one of those fancy recliners that tilts you up like a transformer. She still insisted on baking cookies like she was 40 and didn't have 2 bad knees. I let her. You don't argue with a woman who once survived raising 3 kids in the 70s. At night, we'd sit on the balcony drinking tea, watching the city lights buzz like fireflies. And it was calm. Weirdly calm. But not permanent, because nothing with my family ever is. That calm cracked wide open when I got a letter in the mail. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in this crooked, familiar handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Dad. Inside was a single page. "There's something you need to know. Come to the house. Sunday. 3 p.m. Bring your grandmother." No please, no explanation, just that. Grandma raised an eyebrow when I showed her. "They don't give up easy." I shook my head. "You think it's a trap?" "Oh, absolutely," she said, sipping her tea. "But if you don't go, you'll wonder." She wasn't wrong. Sunday came. We drove back to the old house, the one I had saved from foreclosure and hadn't stepped foot in since storming out with the car surprise still parked around the corner. The driveway was empty. No cars, no lights on, curtains drawn. It looked like a haunted dollhouse. We knocked. No answer. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. Grandma tried calling Dad's phone, straight to voicemail. I glanced at her. Maybe this was the trap. Just a no-show guilt trip. She shrugged. Pathetic if so. We waited another 20 minutes, then left. Nothing else happened that night, or the next. Then 2 days later I got a phone call. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jordan." The voice was soft, familiar. "Riley." My youngest sister. The one who never talked much. The one who used to read books at the dinner table just to avoid conversations. She was the only one who hadn't fully joined the character assassination squad when everything blew up. "Hey," she said, I wanted to say I'm sorry." I stood up from my chair, totally thrown off. "What?" "For all of it," she said quietly. "For not speaking up. For staying quiet when they treated you like that. I didn't know what to do. And now everything's just falling apart. I didn't know how to respond." Part of me wanted to hug the phone. The other part wanted to scream, "Too little, too late." But I didn't do either. "Why now?" I asked. She sighed. "Because I'm watching Mom and Dad unravel. Maddie's spiraling, Kyle's still pissed about the trust, and me, I'm tired. Tired of pretending like any of this is normal. You were always the only one who acted like an actual adult. That hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. Thanks for saying that. She paused. You're not the villain. They want you to be because it's easier than looking in the mirror. But you're not. I nodded slowly even though she couldn't see me. Appreciate it. After we hung up, I sat with that conversation for a while. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. A crack in the wall. Still, I didn't reach out. Not to Maddie, not to Mom, not even to Dad. Especially not after the next letter. This one came officially from a law office. It was about Grandpa. Specifically a trust fund. A second one. Apparently right before he died, Grandpa had created a separate account, this one even more private than the one Grandma had been managing. No one had access. Not even Grandma. It had been quietly building interest for years. And I was the sole beneficiary. The amount enough to make my jaw hit the floor. It wasn't billionaire money, but it was solid. More than I'd ever imagined. I called the lawyer, confirmed everything, and then asked the question burning in my throat. Why me? The answer came without hesitation. Because your grandfather trusted you. He left a note with the documents. It said, the only one who listens, the only one who acts without ego. This is for him. I sat in silence after the call. Because holy shit. All this time I'd been the one they mocked, the one they ignored, the one they treated like a placeholder. And behind the scenes, the only two people who really saw me, had been planning for years to give me a future. That wasn't just money. That was validation. A legacy built on quiet trust. That night I told Grandma. She didn't look surprised, just proud. He always knew, she said. He just didn't say much, like you. We celebrated with 2 slices of cake from the bakery on 7th and a shared bottle of wine. But I wasn't done yet, because the final blow hadn't landed. The next time I heard from Maddie was through a mutual cousin. She'd posted a passive-aggressive family betrayal status on Facebook with a picture of her crying in a luxury SUV, the very car I almost gave them. The caption, some people care more about money than blood. Sad world. I didn't respond. I didn't even screenshot it. Let her scream into the void. But then Mom called, and I'll admit I answered. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I just wanted to hear if anything had changed. Jordan, she said, can we talk? I waited, let her fill the silence. I know things got out of hand. I know we made mistakes. Mistakes. Right. I didn't speak. I just don't want to lose you, she added. I almost laughed. You never had me, I said. You had access. That's not the same. She was quiet. Then, you think you're better than us now? There it was. The real voice, the bitter one. No, I replied. I've always been better to you than you were to me. That's the difference. And I hung up. For good. No rage, no dramatic goodbye. Just the sound of a call ending and the air clearing. Later that night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to shrink. I started finalizing the paperwork for the Carter Fund. I called a designer to build a website. Reached out to a lawyer to handle incorporation. I outlined our mission support overlooked under-supported youth who've been failed by their families. Kids like me. Because I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted impact. Let them sit in their echo chamber of denial. Let them post and gossip and rot in the shadows of a story they'll never tell honestly. Me, I'm done being quiet. I've got legacy money, generational money, and I'm putting it to use for people who actually give a damn. Let the backup kid take the lead. 2 months later, everything was different, but also not. I wasn't rich in the yacht and private jet sense, but I could finally breathe without worrying about rent or surprise dentist bills or whether helping someone meant skipping my own needs. I had options. Leverage, peace, and weirdly, that was the part no one in my family could stand. Not the money itself, but the peace. Because peace means distance. It means boundaries. It means I wasn't picking up their messes anymore, and that left them staring at their own trash piles. And man, they were furious about it. Maddie posted another cryptic story. Some people forget who helped them when they had nothing. Like I didn't remember covering her loan while she hid the paperwork behind her engagement photos. Kyle unfollowed me on everything, which frankly was a favor. And Mom, she started sending group texts to the family chat again, like nothing had happened. Mom. Sunday dinner. 6 p.m., pot roast Maddie. I'll bring wine. Kyle, I'll be there. Me, didn't reply. She texted me separately. Are you coming? Riley said she might stop by too. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I typed, no thanks. I've got plans with people who don't call me selfish for having boundaries. She read it, No reply. I didn't care. At least that's what I told myself. But the truth, it still stung sometimes. Because I wasn't made of stone. I was just done being carved up by people who called it love. Anyway, back to real life. The Carter Fund was moving fast. I hired a small team, mostly people I met through nonprofit networks online. One was a grant writer who used to live in a group home. One was a high school counselor who had quit because the system was so broken she couldn't breathe in it anymore. They got me. We launched a soft site. No ads, no big announcement, just a clean page with a mission for the kids who were expected to survive without being seen. And you know what? People found it anyway. Emails started trickling in, then pouring. Teachers, social workers, young adults, even therapists looking for support for clients. Stories that read like my own. My mom kicked me out at 17 for not paying rent while going to school. I raised my little brother while my parents worked late every night for 12 years. They called me ungrateful after I paid off their mortgage, then blocked me when I asked for a thank you. And suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't too sensitive. I was part of something real. But right when things started to settle, boom, another letter. Not from a lawyer this time, from Riley. Real pen and paper, handwritten. That alone almost made me cry. She said she'd moved out, finally. Got a roommate in a cheap apartment across town. Said it wasn't glamorous, but at least she could breathe. At least she didn't wake up to screaming anymore. Didn't walk on eggshells. She wrote, "I should have said something sooner. You didn't deserve how they treated you. I saw it. I just didn't know how to stop it." She said she wanted to start fresh, on her own, but she was scared. Then she wrote this, "I wish I could undo what they did. I can't, but maybe I can stop the cycle. Maybe we both can." I stared at those words for hours. She didn't owe me anything, but somehow that made her apology feel real. I texted her the next day. We met for lunch at this cheap Mexican spot we used to go to as kids. She looked older, tired, but free. We talked for hours, laughed a little, cried a bit too. I told her about the fund. She offered to help. Not in a give me a job way, but like really help. She wanted to share her story, maybe speak at schools, write copy, build something. And I said yes, because that's what this was always supposed to be. Not just a revenge arc, not a payout, a rebuild. Not just for me, but for anyone stuck in the same broken loop. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the bank that held my parents' mortgage. The same one I'd negotiated with during the crisis. The manager sounds awkward. "Mr. Carter, we received a power of attorney request on your behalf. Says you're handing over full control of the family estate to your father." My stomach drops. "What? Is that correct?" "Absolutely not," I said. "Don't approve anything, not without my direct signature." "Got it," he says. We flagged it as suspicious but thought we'd check. I hang up. My hands are shaking. Because what the hell? I call the lawyer. Send him everything. He confirms what I already suspect. Maddie forged a POA request pretending I was transferring rights to Dad. They wanted to claw back control. Even after all this, even after the court, the trust, the public records, they were still trying to play puppeteer with scissors. But this time I wasn't just angry. I was prepared. We filed a cease and desist, sent notice of attempted fraud, notified the trust administrators, and I made one more call to the local newspaper. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet little op-ed. Title: What Happens When the Scapegoat Walks Away. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. It wasn't for them. It was for the other Jordans out there. The ones gaslit into silence. The ones blamed for refusing to drown quietly. The ones who dared to save themselves and got branded selfish for it. The post went semi-viral. Comments poured in, DMs, emails. People told me it felt like reading their own life story. Some asked how I found the strength. Some said they weren't ready yet, but they would be. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about my family anymore. This was about a pattern, a blueprint, and I had broken it. The next day, Grandma sat across from me at the kitchen table, still in her robe. Crossword puzzle half done. She looked up and said, "You look lighter." "I feel it," I said. She nodded. "They'll keep trying, you know that." "I know," I replied, "but now I don't flinch when they do." She smiled. Then, like it was nothing, she slid a file across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Deed to the house," she said. "Yours now. I don't need it. I'm happy where I am." I opened the folder. My name. In clean final ink. I wanted to argue. She shut it down before I could start. "You earned this. Not just with money, with clarity, with integrity, with choosing better when they wouldn't." That night, I walked through the house alone. Every room felt different. Not haunted, Just reclaimed, like a song finally playing at the right tempo. I stood in the hallway looking at an old picture on the wall, one of the few I was in off to the side, blurry, forgotten. I took it down, not out of anger, out of peace. Then I replaced it. A new photo. Me, Grandma, Riley, and a blank space next to us, for whoever needed it next. Because this story, it wasn't just mine anymore. It was a starting point. And I wasn't done writing. It's been a year now. A full year since I walked out of that house, since I watched their faces drop in the driveway when they saw the car I bought, the one they never got. A year since Grandma climbed into the passenger seat and said I'm going with him. I still think about that moment. Not out of spite, not even anger anymore, just clarity. That was the fork in the road. That's when I stopped being the guy they used and started being someone I actually respected. The Carter Fund's real now. Not just a scrappy project or a we'll see side idea. It's staffed, funded, legit. We've helped over 300 young adults, kids who aged out of care with nowhere to go, siblings taking care of siblings, students couch surfing through college because their parents said they were too dramatic to live at home. We give them rent grants, laptops, therapy sessions, sometimes just a phone call from someone who doesn't speak in gaslight. And yeah, we're not curing cancer, but we're stopping emotional infections before they rot the whole damn soul. Riley's part of it, fully. She runs the media wing, built us a TikTok with 100K followers in 6 months. She tells her story now about growing up in a family that celebrated you for staying quiet, then turned on you for having needs. And every time she speaks, someone new finds the courage to write their own goodbye. We call them first fires. The moment you stop explaining yourself. The moment you put the match down and let the cold burn away what wasn't real. We help them write those letters, the kind that say no more without needing a damn apology first. Anyway, the weirdest part of healing, it's not loud. It's slow, subtle. Feels like watching moss grow on a rock, then realizing one day the whole thing's green. I still get quiet some mornings, still wake up from old dreams where I'm being told, don't make this about you. Or worse, you misunderstood. But those voices don't stay long. Now I've got new ones. The teens who tell me I finally left. I'm safe. The kid who wrote, you gave me a laptop. Now I'm in med school. The girl who said, you reminded me I'm not crazy, just unprotected. Those voices, they drown out the old ones, even the petty ones. Oh, speaking of petty, Maddie tried again. 3 months ago, she DM'd me on Instagram from a burner account because I blocked her on everything else. So now you're a hero. Congrats on your pity party. Let's see how long that lasts. I didn't respond. I just forwarded the message to my lawyer and posted a story. Healing isn't loud, but it is legal. That one got a lot of claps. Kyle never reached out again. I'm not surprised. He's the type who thinks silence is power when it's really just cowardice with Wi-Fi. Mom sent a card on my birthday. No message inside. Just a photo of me as a kid folded in half like some apology origami. I didn't open it fully. Just dropped it in the box where I keep the rest of that version of my life, a shoebox labeled unclaimed baggage. I don't hate them. Not anymore. But I don't mistake absence for remorse either. Sometimes people aren't sorry. They're just quieter when you stop enabling them. I don't need revenge. I don't need validation. I needed boundaries. And I built them brick by brick, silence by silence, choice by choice. Grandma's still with me. Still doing her crossword puzzles in pen. Still watching her terrible game shows. Still asking if I've eaten even though she's the one who always forgets lunch and survives on crackers and black coffee. She's the reason I didn't break. She's also the reason I get to rebuild. Last weekend, we took a photo together. Her, me, and Riley standing in front of the new Carter Fund building. It's small, just a converted duplex right now. But it's ours. We put the photo on the website homepage. Caption: sometimes the backup kid becomes the foundation. And under that, a quote from Grandma. One she said to me when all this started. Don't spend your life proving your worth to people who need you small to feel tall. Now about once a month we host a night called Unsaid Things. It's open mic style. No fancy setup, just couches, cheap pizza, and a mic in the middle of the room. People come from all over. They sit in the dark and say what they never got to say. I needed you and you shamed me for it. I wasn't lazy, I was depressed. I paid your rent. You called me selfish. I raised your kid. You erased me. You taught me to disappear. I finally did. Then someone always whispers from the corner, and that's okay. You don't need them to clap. The power in that silence, more real than any family photo. So yeah, this is my ending and my beginning. No dramatic final speech, no perfect bow, just truth. I'm not the quiet one anymore. I'm not the background sibling, I'm not the fixer-upper. I'm the builder now. And if you're reading this thinking, damn, that's me too, here's what I'll say. You don't have to make them understand. You don't even have to make them listen. You just have to walk out. One quiet step, one clear line, one choice that says, I'm done being your lesson, I'm ready to be my own legacy. And when you do, I'll be here. We all will. Story 2, Thanksgiving, 4:47 p.m. The cranberry sauce was still cold, and so was the room in that eerie buzzing way you can't hear but somehow feel. Then Rachel stood up. My older sister, queen of fake smiles and quiet backstabs. She raised her wine glass and said, "Before we eat, there's something we need to say." I already knew. I knew by the look in her eyes, the way my mother glanced at her, and nodded the way my dad kept his head down, swirling the ice in his scotch like it held the courage he didn't. We had a talk, she said, smiling like a politician. And we voted. You're no longer part of this family. It didn't even sound like a sentence, more like a verdict. At first silence, then applause. Literal clapping. My cousin Becca laughed. Uncle Stan toasted. My mom gave a dramatic sigh and said, well, it had to be said. I didn't speak. I didn't even move. I just looked down at my plate, watching the steam rise from the mashed potatoes I made. They voted me out. Like I was a contestant on some reality show instead of a person who had paid their mortgage more than once. Then my dad mumbled, honestly, Caleb, it's probably for the best. I smiled. Not because I found it funny, but because I was ready. I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila folder. Thick, clipped, sturdy. The kind of folder that doesn't hold recipes, it holds receipts. I slid it across the table toward Rachel. Her smile faltered. What's this? You wanted a performance, I said calmly. Here's your encore. She opened the folder like she expected confetti. Instead, she found fire. First page. A list of every dollar I sent to this family over the past 6 years. Mortgage payments, bail money, tuition deposits, emergency loans that were never paid back. The highlighted line that made her choke, $4,200 labeled Rachel infertility treatment, never told Joel. Yeah, her husband Joel saw that line too. The room went dead quiet. Second page. Screenshots of texts. The group chat she didn't know I had access to. The one where she called me a sad, bitter man-child with a savior complex. Third page. A breakdown of how I paid for 50% of her wedding. A wedding where I wasn't even included in the family slideshow. By the time she hit page 5, she was shaking. You, she gasped. You're disgusting. No, I said, standing slowly. I'm done. Let me rewind, because none of this started at Thanksgiving. That moment, that was just the boiling point. You want the full picture, fine. Let's talk about what led to that folder. Let's talk about how I became their personal ATM with a pulse. Growing up, Rachel was everything I wasn't. Loud, blonde, smiled on command, knew how to cry on cue. I was the quiet one, the extra in her spotlight. My wins were accidents. Hers were destiny. When I got a full scholarship to a state school, my parents said, wow, lucky break. When she failed out of a liberal arts college and moved home, they said, she's just figuring things out. They let her figure things out for 10 years, while I worked double shifts, built a business from scratch, paid off my student loans before 30. And when Rachel finally married Joel, a walking startup brochure with veneers, I helped pay for the venue, because mom said they'd fall apart if they had to downsize. That was the beginning of it. The unspoken rule I gave, they took. And when I said no, suddenly I was selfish, ungrateful, cold. I didn't have a family of my own, they said. I didn't understand how hard it was. But apparently I understood enough to cover therapy bills, car repairs, credit card debt, and that time Dad accidentally overdrew his joint account with Mom and needed a $3,000 patch. I kept giving, and they kept taking. Until 3 months ago when Rachel texted, can you co-sign a $60K business loan? Joel and I want to start a kombucha truck. That was the line. I said no. She didn't reply. 2 weeks later, Mom's birthday dinner happened without me. No invite, no call. Just a family photo on Instagram with the caption, wouldn't trade this tribe for the world. I realized then I wasn't family. I was funding. So I started building my folder, quietly. Every transfer, every check, every time I paid for something they conveniently forgot. I pulled bank records, found out Mom used my card twice without telling me, tracked down a Venmo transaction where Dad paid for a Vegas hotel while claiming it was a medical expense. Rachel, she was the queen of lies. She once told Joel I was mentally unstable when I refused to babysit her kid for free on a work deadline. Joel believed her, until that folder hit the table. Back to Thanksgiving. Joel was frozen eyes locked on the paper. This says, "You took Caleb's card to get a hotel in Chicago. Who the hell is Maya?" Rachel didn't answer, because there was no good answer. Mom tried to jump in. "Let's not do this now, it's Thanksgiving." "No," I said, "it's intervention day. And the addict is this whole damn family." Dad stood up like he was going to play mediator. I looked at him and said, "Don't. You've known all along. You let it happen." He sat back down. Rachel hissed, "You're just bitter no one loves you." I laughed. "I'm not bitter. I'm broke from loving you all for too long." Then I reached into my coat and dropped a second envelope on the table. Joel caught it, opened it. Inside, a letter revoking my role as joint guarantor on Rachel and Joel's mortgage, a legal withdrawal of power of attorney for Mom and Dad, a formal notice that I was dissolving every financial tie to this family. "You can't do this," Mom whispered. I just did. And with that, I walked out. Not in a rage, not in tears. Just calm, clean, free. They voted me out. Good. Because now I get to decide what family means to me. And spoiler alert, it doesn't involve people who only love you when your wallet's open. The door clicked shut behind me. Not slammed, just closed, quiet, final. Outside, the cold air bit my skin like a dare. But I kept walking, hands in my coat pockets, no rush. Because when you finally choose yourself, there's no need to run. I drove to the only place that had ever felt safe, the hill behind my old high school. Empty, quiet, overlooking the same town that once made me feel invisible. I sat on the hood of my car staring at the houses below. Some still had Christmas lights up. Some probably still had their own family drama simmering behind frosted windows. But for the first time in my life, none of it was mine to fix. And that was everything. The silence didn't last long, though. By morning, the messages started. Mom called 3 times. No voicemail, just the aggressive kind of calling that says pick up or we'll escalate. Then Rachel. A single text. "You ruined everything." I didn't reply. She followed up with a screenshot of Joel's Facebook post. "Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who bury the truth deepest. Grateful for clarity, not everyone deserves a second chance." 2 hours later, a new text. "Joel moved out. You happy now?" Again, I said nothing, because for once I didn't owe them a single word. By day 3, Dad reached out. A voice message. "We all said things we didn't mean. You brought paperwork to Thanksgiving, Caleb. You embarrassed your sister in front of everyone. I know she's no angel, but you didn't have to go nuclear." I listened to it twice, then deleted it. They thought I'd lose sleep, that I'd regret it. But I slept better that week than I had in years. No group texts. No late night, "Can you spot us $500 just until Friday?" No guilt trips. No being told I was cold for setting boundaries they never respected. It was quiet, and I loved it. Then came the post. Not mine. Becca, my cousin, posted a long faux spiritual monologue on Facebook. Family isn't always perfect. Sometimes people need time to heal, but cutting people off during the holidays, that's not strength. That's bitterness disguised as boundaries. The comments poured in. A few sided with her, but more asked, "Wait, is this about the Thanksgiving folder thing?" Turns out word had spread, and not just inside the family. Apparently someone recorded Rachel screaming. A distant cousin's kid had captured the moment on their phone, because of course they did. And like wildfire, it made its way through the extended family group chats. The truth, it didn't make me feel exposed. It made me feel seen, because I wasn't the black sheep anymore. I was the mirror, and they hated the reflection. A week later, I got an email. Subject regarding trust beneficiary rights. It was from a law firm. Turns out I had been the listed secondary trustee on my grandfather's estate, something they'd kept quiet. Until now. And guess what? With the current mess, Rachel was disqualified for breach of fiduciary responsibility. Yep, that Chicago hotel bill with someone named Maya counted. I was next in line. I stared at the letter for a full minute before I laughed. Not because I cared about the money, but because I had planned to walk away with nothing. Now they'd have to watch me walk away with everything they thought was locked up. Mom tried to fix things after that. She invited me to Sunday dinner, said it would just be a small reset. I declined. She sent a text. "I don't understand how you can throw decades of love away like this." I replied for the first time since Thanksgiving. "You can't throw away what was never freely given." She left me unread. Then Joel called. It surprised me. We hadn't spoken since the wedding. Since the night I slipped him the envelope that kept his marriage afloat for another year. He sounded tired. "Hey, Caleb. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. For believing her. For treating you like the problem. You were never the problem." I didn't say anything. He went on. She lied, a lot. The hotel, the money, there was more. I'm handling it. But you were right, you always were. Then he paused. Anyway, I know it doesn't fix anything, just thought you should know. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. Thanks, Joel. And that was enough. Because the point was never revenge. It was recognition. I didn't make a grand announcement online. I didn't post some revenge TikTok or cryptic Instagram quote. I just started living. I donated the extra room in my apartment to a nonprofit. They used it as a temporary office for at-risk youth outreach. I signed up for therapy. My therapist Michelle asked on day 1, "What made you finally come?" And I told her the truth. They voted me out, so I chose to stop voting myself in. That winter I took a solo trip. Just me and a rental cabin in Colorado. No notifications, no requests, no fake emergencies. I hiked in the snow, drank cocoa on the porch, watched the fire burn clean. And one night as I sat watching the wind bend the pine trees, I whispered to myself, this is what family was supposed to feel like. Safe. Still. Not performative. Not conditional. Just quiet. It didn't take long for the cracks to become earthquakes. Rachel's kombucha truck plan never launched, no funding, no loan cosigner, no backup savings. Joel filed for separation 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. Apparently finding out your wife siphoned emergency funds for a hotel room with Maya was the final straw. She blamed me, of course. Because when you've spent your whole life spinning chaos and someone finally turns off the fan, you get exposed. Mom stopped calling after my last message, but she hadn't stopped strategizing. That's what the next surprise told me. In mid-January, I got a certified letter from my family's estate lawyer. The letter was brief but brutal. Due to recent events, your presence is requested at a scheduled mediation regarding unresolved financial contributions made toward the family property and prior informal support arrangements. In plain English, they were trying to claw back money I'd already given. Apparently, Rachel was claiming I financially manipulated the family over the years by giving money with strings attached and unspoken expectations. She was trying to rewrite the past to make me look like the villain. And you know what? Fine. Let's go to court. At the hearing, the room looked like a bad high school reunion. Rachel sat at one end, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he moonlighted as a podcast host. Mom was behind her, lips tight, jaw clenched. Dad didn't come. Shocking no one. Me, I brought Cassie, my lawyer, my bulldog in pearls. She sat calmly beside me, flipping through the folder. Yes, that folder, the one I dropped on the Thanksgiving table. Only now it was updated, labeled, tabbed, and ready for war. The mediator opened the session. We're here today to review claims related to financial misrepresentation and familial coercion. Cassie cut in. Let's be clear. My client is the one being sued for emotional manipulation through charitable assistance. That's the claim. The mediator nodded. Cassie turned to Rachel. Let's start with the basics. You claim Caleb pressured you by helping you. Can you explain how voluntary tuition payments and co-signed medical debt became coercion? Rachel opened her mouth, then shut it. Cassie slid the first document forward, a payment confirmation. $8,350 paid to the registrar's office in full. No strings, no deadline. Was this coerced? Cassie asked. Rachel stared down. It was expected. Cassie smiled. Expected or convenient? Silence. Cassie kept going. $4,200 fertility clinic deposit. Caleb paid it directly, then never mentioned it again. $3,000. Bail money for Rachel's friend. Yes, friend, not even her. Screenshots, emails, even Rachel's own thank you messages, which she apparently forgot to delete before we backed up her Facebook. Cassie dropped the printout. You called him your guardian angel. That sound like coercion to you? Rachel was squirming now. Then came the death blow. Cassie opened a slim folder and pulled out a notarized document. It was a loan agreement, signed by Rachel, dated 2 years ago, stating that any funds above $5,000 from Caleb would be repaid if the business launched. Rachel blinked. That wasn't real. Cassie leaned in. You signed it, notarized, witnessed, and then texted him, quote, I'll pay you back once we're up and running. Promise. The room went still. The mediator took a long breath. Rachel, he said, based on these records, there's no evidence of manipulation. Just generosity, accountability, and thorough documentation. Then he turned to me. Mr. Gray, would you like to respond? I nodded once, then spoke. I didn't come here to fight, I said. I came to finish. I looked at Rachel. You asked for help. I gave it. Again and again. Not because I wanted control, because I thought we were family. I turned to Mom. You called me cold, but I was the one who turned on the heat when your pipes burst. Paid your rent when Dad's gambling drained your account. You didn't call that manipulation then. No one looked me in the eye. I took a breath. I'm done defending myself for having boundaries. Done explaining why I stopped bleeding so you could keep bandaging your mistakes. Rachel's lawyer started to say something. Cassie shut it down. We're filing a motion for damages and defamation. If this goes further, we'll escalate to court. The mediator raised his hands. I recommend settlement and full withdrawal of claims. Rachel looked ready to snap the pen in her hand. I stood. I won't take another dollar from you. I won't accept an apology you don't mean. But I will take my piece, and I'm keeping it. Then I turned to leave. Before I hit the door, Mom called after me, just once. Caleb. I stopped. I didn't know how bad it got. With Rachel, with everything. I didn't turn around. You knew enough to let it keep happening. And then I walked out. Outside, Cassie caught up to me. You good? She asked. I nodded. I'm good. You want to sue them? I thought for a moment. No. I don't want their money. I want their silence. She grinned. Then you already won. In the days that followed, it got quiet again. Not the eerie kind, the good kind. The you turned off your phone and no one's life exploded kind. Rachel went offline for a bit, probably rebranding. Probably blaming me in group chats I'll never see. Mom sent one more text. I wish you'd come home, we can fix this. I didn't reply. Because the house she meant, it was never mine. It was a place I paid to keep standing. Now it can fall without taking me down with it. That weekend I stood in the kitchen of my new place. Sunlight through clean windows, quiet music playing, soup on the stove, no chaos. Just me. And for once that was enough. My phone buzzed once. A friend I hadn't seen in 3 years. Hey, saw your story. Proud of you. Let's catch up soon. I smiled. Maybe I lost a family. But I finally had room for people who didn't need me broken to feel whole. It's been 6 months. No explosions, no court battles, no last-minute reconciliations. Just space. Beautiful, wide-open space. Rachel never followed up on the mediation. Her defamation threat vanished like everything else she'd built on sand. Joel finalized their divorce quietly. I heard from a friend of a friend that he moved out of state. No drama, no headlines, just gone. Mom tried again in April. She sent a card for my birthday. No signature, just a single line printed neatly. Family finds its way back. I stared at it for a moment, then slid it into a drawer I no longer open. Let me be honest about something. I thought I'd feel lonelier than this. I thought cutting off my entire family would leave some howling emptiness in its place. But what I felt wasn't emptiness. It was stillness. And stillness isn't hollow. It's healing. I spent the spring rebuilding. Not my life, I already had that. What I rebuilt was my own narrative. My self-image. Because when you grow up being told you're selfish for saying no, it takes time to believe that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. I started making real friends again. Not just people who liked me because I fixed things, but people who knew me. People who asked how I was and meant it. I reconnected with my old college roommate Ethan. He invited me to a barbecue. No drama, just burgers and beer and laughter that didn't have strings attached. I laughed without flinching. That was new. One evening in June, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened to it. It was my cousin Becca. I know I clapped when they voted you out. I was just scared to speak up. I didn't know the whole story. I'm sorry, I really am. You didn't deserve that. None of it. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because the apology wasn't mine to manage. Some bridges stay broken for a reason. I've stopped explaining my decisions to people. Stopped feeling like I owe anyone a rundown of why I left, why I cut them off, why I'm not coming home for Christmas this year, or next, or ever. I told Michelle, my therapist, I don't feel guilty anymore. Is that normal? She smiled. That's called progress. I kept the folder, the one from Thanksgiving. It's in a fireproof box now locked away. Not because I need it, but because it's a symbol. A reminder. That I stood up for myself when no one else did. That I didn't go nuclear. I went honest. And sometimes honesty looks a lot like war to people who only know manipulation. This summer I started hiking again. Every Sunday, same trail. No phone, no music, just my boots, the trees, and the sound of my breath. Last week I passed a family on the trail. Mom, dad, 2 kids, golden retriever. They waved, I waved back. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt whole. Because family isn't blood. It's respect. And I finally built a life full of that. You know the funny part? Sometimes I still catch myself drafting responses in my head. Lines I'll never say. Mic drops I'll never deliver. Tell me again how I'm selfish after I paid your rent 3 times. Say I'm cold one more time while cashing a check I sent. But I don't say them. Because the most powerful thing I ever did was leave without looking back. Last week, I got a handwritten letter from Mom. 3 pages. Page 1 was about God. Page 2 was about guilt. Page 3 was the ask. We're selling the house, but the mortgage is upside down. You're the only one who can help. No apology, no ownership, just nostalgia and an invoice. I read it once, then folded it in half and placed it back in the envelope. No return address needed. Some people think forgiveness is about inviting someone back, but it's not. It's about letting go of the hope that they'll ever make it right. It's about choosing peace over proximity, and that's what I chose. Last night I made dinner for 2 friends. We laughed, swapped stories, planned a group trip. No one asked for money, no one insulted me with a compliment, no one kept score. After they left, I stood in the doorway for a while, just breathing, and I thought, this is what family feels like. Not the people who vote you out the moment you stop bleeding for them, but the ones who clap when you choose to heal. If you're reading this, wondering if you're the villain for walking away, you're not. If you're wondering if going no contact makes you heartless, it doesn't. If you're wondering whether peace is worth the loneliness that sometimes follows, it is. It really, really is. Because for the first time in my adult life, I don't wake up dreading my phone. I don't flinch when I see Mom on caller ID. I don't brace myself for the next guilt trip disguised as an emergency. I just live, unapologetically. So yeah, they voted me out. And in doing so, they set me free. They thought I'd come crawling back, that I couldn't function without them, that I'd miss the mess they called love. They were wrong. I didn't lose a family. I lost a habit, one that drained me every day, and I gained something better. A life where I belong to myself. Fully, finally, freely. Story 3. I sold my car to fund someone else's dream. Not my partner, not a close friend. My little brother's girlfriend. Let that sink in. I'm Leo, 29. I juggle a full-time IT job and weekend gigs fixing busted routers for cash. I'm not rich, I'm not even comfortable, but I was raised to be the fixer, the bridge, the emergency fund that walks on 2 legs. Family sacrifices for family, Mom always said, but nobody warned me that I'd be the only one sacrificing. It started with a group text from my mom. Subject, important, Lila's future depends on this. Lila is my brother Damon's on-again, off-again girlfriend. She's 23, makes crystal bracelets, calls herself a moon cycle mentor, and once tried to heal my migraines by putting amethyst on my forehead and playing whale sounds from her phone. The message read, Lila's been accepted into an incredible online wellness certification. It's expensive, but it'll change her life and ours. Damon believes in her. We all do. Leo, can you help again? You're always so generous. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I knew how this went. I'd say no, and suddenly I'd be the villain in a story I didn't write. See, last year I sold my 2011 Civic, my first car, my only car, so Damon could take a life-changing personal finance course in Arizona. He dropped out in week 2. Said the teacher had weird energy. I walked to work in the snow for months while he posted thirst traps in the desert with hashtags like #HealingMyInnerCEO. He never apologized. And now they wanted me to do it again. For her, when I showed up to family dinner that Sunday, I already knew the pitch was coming. I could feel it in the way the table was set. Too formal, too quiet. Mom served lasagna, the forgiveness food as I called it. Damon was unusually chipper. Lila was there barefoot as always, sipping tea from a mason jar that said cleanse, yum, and manifest. So Mom said, barely touching her salad. Big news. I didn't speak. Damon grinned. Lila got into the Celestia Collective. I blinked. Sounds like a space cult. Lila laughed like I was adorable. It's a women's empowerment and energy alignment institute. They only accept 20 students a year. And the tuition I asked, even though I already knew, $7 and $200, Mom answered quickly. But it's an investment in all of us. That line again, investment, like I was a hedge fund. Damon put his hand on mine. Bro, you always support us. And you just got that bonus, right? I pulled my hand back. That bonus went to my cracked molar and 3 months of rent, I said. I'm not your bank. Mom frowned. Don't be harsh. Lila has a gift. This course, she sells crystals on Etsy, I interrupted. Last week she said she could cure eczema with moon water. Your tone, Damon snapped. My wallet, I said. The silence got tense. Then came the guilt grenades. You never believe in anyone but yourself. You wouldn't even have that job if Grandpa hadn't loaned you money in college. We're just asking for support, not a kidney. They made me feel like a monster for drawing a line. That night I stared at my ceiling until 3 a.m., debating whether I was cold or finally just done. By morning, I'd made my choice. I texted, "I love you all, but I'm not funding another dropout fantasy. Please don't ask again." Mom replied with a single period. A week of silence followed. Then the retaliation began. Damon unfriended me on everything. Lila posted a vague Instagram story. "Some people pretend to be supportive until you shine too bright." Then I got the email. A fake loan application with my name as the co-signer, my address, my income, my SSN. Someone had used my identity to apply for a holistic coaching education loan. I froze. Called the number on the form. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I didn't authorize this application." The woman on the line paused. "Sir, you're listed as the primary guarantor for Ms. Lila Jennings." "I'm not. Cancel it." I called Damon immediately. He picked up like nothing happened. "What's up? You used my information. That's fraud." "Relax," he said. "We didn't submit it. You filled it out." Lila was just trying to see if she'd qualify. She thought you'd come around. That's when I felt it, the shift. Not sadness, not betrayal. Pure cold clarity. I wasn't family. I was a walking checkbook with a face they recognized. The next family dinner I showed up, but not to eat. I stood behind my chair, folder in hand. Before we begin, I said I brought something. I laid out copies of every transaction I'd made in the past 2 years, Damon's tuition, Lila's spiritual retreat, Mom's emergency dental bill, even the birthday Uber ride for Aunt May. Over $24,000. I didn't ask for thanks, I said, but I never asked to be used. Damon looked pale. Lila looked offended. Mom just stared. Then I dropped the final page. A notarized identity theft report. Filed under Lila's name. The silence that followed. It tasted like vindication. I didn't yell, didn't demand apologies. Just walked out, coat over my shoulder, head clear. They wanted a provider. I wanted a family. Turns out you don't always get both. 3 days after I walked out, the silence broke. It started with Mom's go-to strategy, performative sadness. She texted a photo of our old backyard, just the bench where I used to fix Dad's radio back when he still smiled at me. "Miss your energy here. This family feels broken." I didn't reply. I let the guilt sit on my chest for about 10 minutes before I swiped the message away. I wasn't angry. I was awake. The next message came from Damon. This time he didn't bother with sweetness. "You seriously reported her? You want to ruin her life over a form? Wow." That was the moment I realized how deep it went. They didn't see me as a person. I was a service, an account they'd overdrawn, and now that I'd closed it, they wanted to fight the bank. Lila's Instagram posts kept rolling in. One was a selfie under a quote graphic. "Sometimes you have to hurt people's feelings to protect your vibration." Caption: "Clearing the leeches from my aura." Subtle. The following week, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Leo," the voice rasped. "Dad." He barely ever called unless something was leaking or dying. "You really think this is how men handle problems?" he said. "Which part?" I asked. "Protecting myself from fraud or refusing to sponsor a light body retreat?" He didn't laugh. "You embarrassed your mother. You blindsided your brother. You're acting like a stranger." "Good," I said, "because I've never felt more like myself." They didn't like that version of me, the one with a spine, so they turned up the pressure. Mom emailed me a budget spreadsheet with a subject line, "Let's rebuild this family together." It had 5 columns. Lila's tuition refund, Damon's car repairs, Mom's chiropractor sessions, Grandma's medication, household emergencies. At the bottom was a total $9.80. No greeting, no context, just numbers and a PayPal link. I stared at it, then deleted it. That Friday, I got a voicemail from Grandma. She's the only one who doesn't weaponize her love. She sounded tired. "Sweetheart, I know it's messy, but maybe they'll come around. Just don't disappear on me, okay? You're the only one who visits when it's not a holiday." I cried for the first time in months. Not because I felt bad, because I missed her. And I hated that they were using her as bait. By the second week, they moved on from guilt to reputation. Someone on Facebook messaged me screenshots of a post from Lila's mom. "Heartbreaking to watch my daughter get sabotaged by someone she trusted. Some people can't stand to see you rise." One of the comments said, "It's always the bitter brother who blocks blessings." Another, "Men who are jealous of women's success scare me." I almost laughed. Jealous of a woman who believes kombucha is a personality. No, I wasn't jealous. I was just done funding delusions. Then came the final straw. I got a letter in the mail, not an email, an actual paper letter, handwritten, sealed in an envelope. It looked like it had been touched by 6 different types of guilt. It was from Mom. "Leo, I don't know what happened to you. You used to be generous, kind, Now you're vindictive, cold, dangerous. You're turning your back on the people who raised you. We didn't raise you to be spiteful. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in my shredder, watched the teeth chew it into nothing. I took the rest of that week to clean house, literally and metaphorically. I deactivated all payment apps, froze my credit, removed their access to my phone plan. I even called the vet clinic and removed my card from Mom's account. They were surprised it had been listed as her primary for 2 years. Then I drafted a final message. One line: "You lost access to me the moment you tried to steal from me." I never sent it, because it wasn't for them. It was for me. A month passed. No texts, no calls. I started sleeping better. Food tasted like food again. I went to the gym without checking my balance first. I took a day off just to walk the lakefront. The silence was thick, sure, but not empty. It was sacred. Then something shifted. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Grandma's nurse. She'd taken a fall. Minor but scary. She was asking for me. I left work and went straight to her care center. She lit up the second she saw me. "You look taller," she said. Standing straighter, I replied, "Finally." We talked for an hour, about nothing and everything. She never once asked me to forgive anyone. She just said, "Whatever peace you have now, keep it." That night I walked past my old Civic. Someone else was driving it now. It looked different, polished, repainted, reborn. And I smiled, because I realized something important. They didn't just want my car or my money or my help. They wanted my silence, my complicity. They wanted me to hand them my time, my effort, and my name and pretend it was normal. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I didn't respond when Damon texted me 2 weeks later. Can you unreport Lila, she's losing clients?" I didn't even open the message. They tried everything, guilt, shame, nostalgia. But I'd changed the locks. And not just the ones on my accounts, the ones on my identity. You know what's wild? Once people realize they can't guilt you anymore, they start to panic. Not because they miss you, but because they miss what you gave them. By the start of the second month, the texts came back. Not from Damon or Mom directly, of course. That would require an ounce of humility. No, they sent proxies. Lila's cousin messaged me. "She's really spiraling, man. Can you just clear the fraud thing?" She didn't know better. I stared at the message like it was written in chalk on a sidewalk, temporary, performative, and asking for rain. I didn't answer. Because this wasn't about a form anymore. It was about everything they never said but always expected. The week after that, Mom called me from a blocked number. Left a voicemail that felt like a script from a bad daytime drama. "We're family. You don't just walk away from that. Leo, sweetie, please come home and talk." Home. Interesting word choice considering they never asked how my apartment was doing while I skipped meals to cover Damon's tuition. They only ever called it home when they needed me back inside. Then came the lie. A mutual family friend, Aunt Ro, called to check in. 10 minutes in, she dropped this. "So I heard you threatened to sue your own brother. That true?" My stomach dropped. "No," I said. "I filed a fraud report. That's different." She hesitated. "Your mom said you lost your mind, that you've been isolated, that it's not really about the money." That was it. I'd reached the chapter of their story where I was no longer the giver. I was the unstable one, the angry brother, the distant son, the one who changed. They always say that when you stop complying, you've changed. No, I just stopped apologizing for wanting peace. Around the same time, I was offered a freelance gig with a startup I'd been eyeing for months. IT security consulting. Small team. Real potential. Remote, flexible, decent pay. They asked for a portfolio. I didn't have one. Why? Because every spare hour of the last 2 years had gone into fixing Wi-Fi issues for my family, not my future. I'd poured my skills into everyone else's problems without ever building something that was mine. So I stayed up all weekend. Coded, designed, compiled. I sent them a stripped-down, no BS portfolio of what I could do. They hired me by Monday. And that's when something in me snapped, but in the best way. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted to build something permanent out of what they threw away. I started a digital security side hustle, quietly. At first it was just helping small business owners avoid scams. A few friends, a local baker, a guy running a vintage jacket resale store. I taught them how to protect their data, back up their systems, secure their online payments. Nothing flashy, but they paid, on time, with gratitude. And no one called me selfish when I invoiced them. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on my family, not directly. I still had one toe in the old group chat. The one I muted months ago, but never left because sometimes knowing what's not being said is just as powerful. One day I opened it out of boredom. The name had been changed again. Damon and Lila's Manifestation Circle. Of course it had. I scrolled through. Lila had started some kind of online healing brand. Reiki vision boards, inner child workshops. All from the same apartment I used to help pay for. They even posted a GoFundMe. Title support, 2 lightworkers building a conscious business. The goal, $8,000. The description, we're on a mission to raise the planet's vibration, but we need your help paying rent while we build. I almost choked on my coffee. 3 weeks after that, I saw the post that changed everything. A mutual followed me on Instagram and messaged, "Bro, didn't you say they stole your info?" Look at this. Attached a screenshot of a new testimonial on Lila's site. It quoted a fake client, but the photo attached, it was me. An old headshot from my LinkedIn, cropped, edited, slapped with some nonsense name like Tristan D, and a quote about spiritual clarity. They'd stolen my face, used it as advertising. That was the moment my detachment ended. Because silence is peace until someone uses your name again. I didn't rage, didn't post a call out. I got smart. I screenshot the site, archived the page, emailed a takedown notice. Then I contacted a friend who worked in digital PR and crisis management. "Can you help me write a piece?" I asked. "About family financial boundaries and digital theft." He said yes. We crafted a blog post, personal, controlled, sharp. Title, When Your Family Becomes a Security Risk. It detailed everything from the car sale to the fake loan to the unauthorized testimonial. I didn't name them, but anyone who knew. We posted it under my new business site. Within 72 hours, it had over 20,000 reads. A small YouTuber even did a reaction video about it. Comments rolled in. "This is why I keep my finances to myself. His family really said your credit is our currency." That testimonial part wild. He's not petty, he's patient. Lila deleted her website 2 days later. Damon posted a blurry quote card on his story, "Jealousy is just love and hate at the same time." I laughed. For the first time in months, it didn't sound bitter, just free. 2 weeks later, I was invited to speak at a local tech panel for underrepresented freelancers. The topic, cyber boundaries when the threat is personal. I stood in front of 20 strangers and told my story. How I funded people who called me selfish. How I was framed as unstable for finally saying no. How I built something after they tried to tear me down. The applause didn't change my life, but it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I got one last message before the quarter ended. A text from Damon. "You know, if you ever want to make things right, you could have just talked to me." I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "I didn't need to make things right. I needed to make things mine." And then I blocked him. For good. It's been almost a year since I sold my car for someone else's dream. A year since I stopped explaining my boundaries like apologies. And now, I wake up without panic in my chest. I brew coffee without checking my phone for guilt-laced texts. I breathe in silence and it doesn't feel like loneliness anymore. It feels like freedom. The digital security business I started on impulse, it exploded. It's not flashy. No TikTok dance tutorials, no neon founder hoodies, just results. I called it Firewall and Family, a name with teeth. We consult for local nonprofits, small businesses, solo entrepreneurs, the kinds of people who are passionate about their work but vulnerable to the same digital abuse I lived through. I teach them to protect themselves, to say no earlier, louder, without shame. It started as just me in my living room. Now we've got a team of 6 and a wait list stretching into next quarter. I don't chase clients, they come to us. 3 months ago, I got invited to speak at a cybersecurity conference in Austin. After the panel, a man walked up to me. Early 30s, nervous hands, wedding band. "I'm not trying to overshare," he said, "but your story about family crossing boundaries, that hit." He swallowed. "My brother used my SSN to apply for a lease. I found out when I got denied for a mortgage. I thought I was being cold for cutting him off. I looked him in the eye and said what I wish someone had said to me sooner. You're not cold, you're clear." He smiled like I'd handed him a weapon. Sometimes the right words do that. Meanwhile, back home, Damon and Lila had crashed. Lila's lightworking business shut down after a handful of refund demands and a Reddit thread titled, "Is this spiritual healer just selling recycled quotes and Etsy bundles?" Damon started driving for a rideshare app, not because he wanted to, but because mom finally stopped floating his rent when the landlord threatened legal action. Turns out even enablers get tired. Mom did what moms like her do. She rewrote the story. Started telling family friends that Leo always had to learn the hard way. That I cut everyone off over a misunderstanding. She sent me a birthday card in March. Inside, just one sentence. "Families make mistakes, but we forgive, don't we?" I didn't respond. Forgiveness isn't a coupon code they get to redeem after they've drained your account and reputation. Forgiveness is personal. And mine isn't for sale anymore. In late April, I ran into Damon by accident. I was grabbing lunch downtown when I heard my name. He looked thinner, more tired, like someone who'd spent a year trying to outrun a truth that finally caught up. "Hey man," I nodded. "Damon." He cleared his throat. "I saw the article about your company. That's cool." I said nothing. He tried again. "Listen, I know things got out of hand, but we're still brothers." That word used to mean something. Now it felt like a title he hadn't earned. "Do you need something?" I asked. He paused, maybe expecting me to flinch or fold or play nice. I thought maybe we could talk. Over coffee. I smiled politely. "No." His eyebrows lifted. "Seriously?" I nodded. "Seriously." He scoffed. "So that's it, you're just gonna pretend none of us matter." I looked him in the eye. "You matter, just not enough to keep me small." Then I walked away. That night, I deleted the old family group chat. Not out of spite, out of clarity. They were never really talking to me in there, just to the version of me they could use. Grandma passed in June, peacefully, in her sleep. She'd always said she wanted to go without a fuss like everything she did. I was the only one who visited her every week that last year. She left me a note folded in half, tucked inside her worn Bible. "Leo, you were always the one who stayed kind. Kindness doesn't mean weakness. I hope you live big, and I hope you never feel small again. Love, Grandma." I framed it, hung it next to my desk. Some legacies don't come with noise, just truth. A few months later, a journalist reached out again, this time from a bigger publication. They'd seen my blog post and the growing buzz around my business, wanted to do a feature on digital entrepreneurs who turned betrayal into boundaries. I hesitated. Then I said yes. The headline, "When Family Becomes the First Firewall, How Leo D Turned Personal Loss into Cyber Empowerment." The article was sharp, honest, clean, and most importantly, respectful. It didn't name names, but it painted the picture. And oh, it painted it well. I don't know if my family saw it, but a week later I got a letter, no return address. I knew the handwriting. Mom. It read, "We get it. You're successful now. You've made your point, but just know we're still here, and family doesn't disappear forever." No apology, just entitlement wrapped in paper. I burned it. Watched the smoke curl like every empty promise I used to believe. Here's what I know now. They didn't hate me when I gave. They hated me when I stopped. When I started charging what I was worth. When I dared to say that's not my job. When I stopped setting myself on fire to keep their house warm. They called me cold. But cold isn't cruel. Cold is controlled, clean, safe. Sometimes warmth is just code for compliance. And I don't do that anymore. Now, I drive a new car. My name on the title. No cosigners, no IOUs. I live in an apartment where no one expects access to my bank account or my emotional bandwidth. I see people because I want to, not because they need something. My schedule doesn't orbit their emergencies. And my peace? It's uninterrupted. Do I miss them? No. I miss the version of me who thought I could earn love with sacrifice. That guy, he deserved better. And now he finally has it. They used to say family always comes first, but I've learned something else. Boundaries come before blood. And sometimes the family you need the most is the one you build yourself.